a group of geeks that try to improve government services for millions of people. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Matt Cutts, Administrator at the United States Digital Service. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, what is the United States Digital Service, and how do citizens experience your contributions?
Oh, that's such a good question. So it's basically a group of geeks that try to improve government services that millions of people rely on. We are most well known for healthcare.gov, which is when that website fell over, caught on fire, shrapnel went everywhere, huge disaster. And so people came from across the country and got that site back up so that people were able to sign up for healthcare. And then after that, President Obama said, you know what, we need more geeks in government. And so they created the U.S. Digital Service.
Cybersecurity is a topic of great interest to our audience. Tell us about the Digital Services Hacking the Pentagon program.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a bug bounty is a pretty straightforward idea in regular private industry. So Netscape invented bug bounties in 1995. And the idea is pretty simple. If somebody finds a security hole, they can tell an organization. The organization will give that person some money, and everybody wins because the organization becomes more secure. But even though bug bounties were invented in 1995, the federal government had never done a bug bounty before 2016. So 2016 is when the U.S. Digital Service helped put the first federal bug bounty into play, and it was called Hack the Pentagon. I think it might have been called that because somebody said, okay, you're allowed to do this, but you can't call it Hack the Pentagon. And we were like, okay, well then we're definitely going to call it Hack the Pentagon.
So explain the Trusted Traveler program and how you used agile development processes in the development.
Totally. It's really interesting because, government typically specs things out, 3 years ahead of time because they want to write the requirements for how every single thing should work. And so if you take something that we're all used to, like the global, Trusted Traveler, TSA PreCheck, it turns out it's a little hard to figure out if you should be doing Nexus or Sentry or TSA PreCheck or Global Entry. And so we basically, and it turns out it's different parts of the government that do that. And so we said to ourselves, why don't we make it a little bit easier to compare those different options? And along the way, we also help the government understand, if you develop things in an agile fashion, so like, short sprints and like story points and all this sort of stuff, and not trying to anticipate 4 years from now what you're going to want to build, then it actually works out a little bit better because you can see the minimum viable product as it starts to materialize, and then you can tweak it and you can, improve it over time. And so if you've ever gone to renew your global entry, you're actually using a system that the U.S. Digital Service helped build.
How did you improve the process for veterans to apply for VA healthcare benefits?
Oh my goodness. So it turns out beforehand you had to have the right version of Internet Explorer, and it had to be Internet Explorer along with a different piece of proprietary software. And if you didn't have the right piece of both of those software, then you had to fill out this form online to get your health benefits. And the problem with that is that, number one, it's complicated, you have to find where to mail it, all that sort of stuff. But it also took, on average, about 137 days for the form to be processed. So you're talking 4.5 months for your health benefits to start. So the nice thing about this new form is it's just a web form. So it's responsive, so it works on a mobile phone, it's accessible, so it works for screen readers. But even more important, 50% of veterans find out if they're eligible for benefits within 10 minutes. So 137 days, 4.5 months, to 10 minutes. Like, that's the kind of thing you can do just by implementing a web form. It's not always rocket science whenever we're trying to modernize something in government, but it has a huge impact on regular citizens.
You also offer a set of digital resources like the Digital Services Playbook and U.S. Web Design Standards. Explain those.
Sure. So, anytime you're trying to build a website, you want to have a good set of design standards. And for example, if you're in government, it's incredibly important that it be accessible. So everybody should be able to read it, including blind users. And so you want style guides and other resources that work for everybody. And so this was a joint project. It's not just the U.S. Digital Service, so credit to 18F and the Technology Transformation Service part of government. But they basically worked on a system that made it super easy to make a website that is concise, it's easy to use, it's got all the right contrast, it's accessible, and that just makes everything a little easier because you're already starting with a good substrate. And then our playbook is basically just looking at all the experiences we've had in government and trying to say, you know what, here are some of the pitfalls that we've run into, and then you can sort of save some of the shortcuts and avoid some of the snags that we ran into, so that you can accelerate your development whenever you're working with a government agency.
So web design students could actually use the web design standards to learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a great way, like if you just wanted to have a pretty amazingly good website just to start with, without having to worry about what exactly, what font should I use? What should my CSS look like? If you start with the web design system as a base, then you can always iterate on top of that. You can always, choose what extra functionality to add. But it's just like a ready-made solution that you could sort of drop in, and the default choices are pretty good, so that you'll get a pretty nice looking and useful and accessible website.
You've helped a variety of different people in a lot of different ways, from web development to travel to healthcare. In an organization the size of the federal government, with IT departments and staffing throughout the bureaucracy, how do you coordinate priorities and projects to keep from duplicating efforts?
That is such a great question, because every agency is its own almost unique country, let alone, company or something like that. They'd each be like Fortune 10 kind of companies. We look at a few different criteria. One is, what is the impact? The number of people affected, either in terms of the, in need, or, how visceral, that impact is to the public. But then we also look at feasibility, because if we want to go march our way into the census, but we don't have executive support for that, then, you're going to probably be wasting your time until you're able to go and help out with that. And so the feasibility, in terms of how hard it is and how doable it looks and how much support you have, together with the impact, those are two of the main criteria. But we also look at whether things can scale up. And so we ask ourselves, if we have a solution here, can that go and help, across lots of other parts of government as well?
Matt Cutts, administrator at United States Digital Service. Thanks for joining. If somebody wants to connect with you, maybe they want to find out more about these services or more about the work that you do, how can they do that?
Yeah, we would love if people wanted to check us out on usds.gov. For example, we're always looking for good designers, engineers, product managers. usds.gov is the best place to find our work. And if you want to hunt me out and ask a question of me directly, yeah, find me at Matt Cutts on Twitter.
Perfect. Thanks again. And if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or go to my website, tonyahall.net. I've got links to all my social sites. Thanks for watching.